Hi class. Last video for this section here, and we're going to take a look at P18 number 14. So in the last video, what we did was we looked at this problem here of the hit and runs in our town. This was page P16 number 12, and worked through this problem. If you haven't seen that, go back and take a look at that particular video. And then do this particular problem on your own, and we will take this up in class. To help you out on this particular one here, let's actually set up the contingency table this way so that we're all talking the same language. So we've got the same symbols being used, and our table should look the same. In a large city, 5% of the inhabitants have contracted a particular disease, so we'll show it as diseased or not diseased, and then test is either positive or negative. Of course, I made this problem up quite a while ago, and I've been using it for years, but it's actually pretty appropriate right now in the days of COVID. So we'll work through this particular one. Those aren't necessarily the COVID numbers. All right, let's take a look then at number 14. And in number 14 then, on page P18, the employees of New Horizons Incorporated are divided into three distinct divisions: plant, administration, plant, and sales, and then we've got men and women. So what we've got here then is a table that looks like this. Let's make sure that we're using the same symbols. So we've got A, P, and S, and then we've got men and women. Now, what I'd suggest at this point is stop the video, go back and take a look at the last one, take a look at what you did for number 12, and if you have worked through number 13, and then give this particular one a try before you continue with this video. Okay, I'm going to assume that you've done that. And just on the side here, I'm going to write down the four different types of probabilities that we looked at. Probability of A is a marginal probability. I won't write down the complement of A, but there is, of course, the probability of not A. Then we have a joint probability. And the joint probability then is shown like this. And remember, what's the operative word there? And. Then we've got a union. And what's the operative word? Or. And then finally we've got a conditional. And the operative word? Given. So there's the four types of probabilities. Let's take a look at what our problem says now. The employees of New Horizons Incorporated are divided into three distinct divisions, yada, yada, yada. 60% of all employees are men. That is a marginal probability because it doesn't mention anything about what division that they're in. So that's going to be right down here. The rest are women, so that's 40%, the complement. 30% of all of the employees are in sales. That's also a marginal probability because it doesn't mention anything about gender. Now we get into the statements that are looking at combinations of the two here. Furthermore, 40% of the employees in sales are men. So here's the thing. Remember I talked about prepositions? Here's the preposition. Of those in sales, 40% of those in sales are men. So let me actually clean that up a little bit here. And I could put it down like this: 40% are men. See how I put in a couple of commas there? So 40%, what? Of those in sales. That's the preposition. So given that they're in sales, 40% are men. Now, that's going to be equal to the probability of M and S over the probability of S. And we know that the probability of S is 30%, so it's going to be 40% times 30% is equal to 12%. So there's your answer right there. And that goes in right there. I'm going to put a box around these if they're given to us in the problem. Okay, so 40% of the 30%. 40% times 30% is 12%. That's the joint probability of sales and men. 20% of all women are in administration. So let's change colors here again. And what we have here is of all women are in administration. So given that a person is a woman, there's a 40% chance that she's in administration. That's going to be the probability of A and W over the probability of W. Probability of W is 40%. So it's going to be 40%. Oh, that's 20%. Sorry, that's the problem. Yeah. This number here is 20%. Let me erase that. I was wondering why my numbers weren't working out here. Sorry, it's this number here. So 20% of all women are in administration. So it's 20% of the 40%. 20% times 40% is 0.08. And that goes in here, the intersection of administration and women. Like that. And then finally we've got down here that, let's change colors again, 12% of all employees are men in administration. That's how you would write a joint probability. So 12% of everybody have these two factors. They're men and they are in administration. They're not saying 12% of men. They're not saying 12% of those in administration. They're saying 12% of everybody are or have these two characteristics. They're men and are in administration. So that's something that goes straight in, right in here. Okay, now we've got everything that we need. We can fill in the rest. Going across here, 12% plus 8% is 20%. 20% and 30% leaves you 50% in P. And then, let's see, going down the first column here for the males, 12 and 12 is 24. They need to sum to 60%, so that is 36%. And then we're going across the middle here. We're going to have 14%. 36% and 14% makes 50, and then the last cell down here that's 18%. So you can check that going across as well as going down, and that is our contingency table. Given that, let's see if we can figure out some probabilities. What percentage of employees are in the plant administration division? If we've done this correctly, we should be able to read that right off the table as 50%. What percentage of women So again, here's that preposition. Of the women, what percentage are in sales? So that'd be, remember, you can't take that straight out of the table. You only have joint probabilities and marginals. So the probability of S and W divided by the probability of W is going to be equal to, we're looking at the women here. So given that a person is a woman, we're looking at 18% over 40%. There's your answer. What percentage of plant operation employees? So there's the given part. Are men. That's going to be the probability of M and P over the probability of P. So we're talking about here then, of the plant, what percentage are men? It's going to be the 36% out of the 50%, which is what, 72%. All right, the last part here are these two events, gender and the person's division, independent of each other? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make up a little table. And I'm just going to put down the marginals that we've determined. So we've got A, P, and S. We've got M and W. And we've got 60% are 60% are men, 40% are women. We've got 20% in administration, 50% in P, and 30% in S, sales. So that's what we've got. Now, if these are independent of each other, what we can do then is we should be able to say, if these are independent, then you can take the two marginals and multiply them together to get what we would expect if they're independent. So 0.2 times 0.6 is 0.12. 0.2 times 0.4 is 0.08. And then let's continue on. This would be 0.30. This is 0.20. This is going to be 0.18. And this will be 0.12. So again, in each case, all I'm doing is taking the marginals and multiplying them together. All right, so those are what we would expect if they're independent of each other. What do we find out? Well, what we have here is when it comes to administration, can I make this a little smaller? Yeah. When it comes to administration, they seem to show independence. But then when it comes to plant, we've got more men in plant than we would expect and more women in sales than we would expect. Okay, let me circle those down here. Maybe those, you can see it a little better down here. So in writing this up, what I would say is this. So administration is independent of gender. So for that row, we have independence. We have 12% and 8%. That's a 60-40 split. And so that's what we've got. However, we've got more men in plant than we would expect. Than expected. And more women in sales than expected. And that's how we can write that. That implies, of course, less women in plant than we would expect and less men in sales than we expect. And so that's how we would describe the relationship between those. So I want you to do number 15 on your own. Let me set up this problem for you. And so what we've got here then is, and we'll take this up in class, what we've got here is low, medium, and high incomes, accounts, and then whether they're delinquent or not delinquent. And so with that then, you can give this a try and see what you get. Remember that there's a bunch of problems that follow this, and so please take a look at all these problems here and work through them. And the answers, and that will take you through to the end of Unit P. A great game at the end, and that is